for joining. Today is Tuesday, July 14th. This is the Hudson Public Utilities Commission meeting. Jace, you want to start with roll call?
Hassan?
Here.
Quorum?
Here.
Paul?
Here.
Nolan?
Here.
Kreisel? Oh, Dave. Okay. P. Winkle?
Here.
Wecken?
Here.
That's it, Andy.
That's it. We're good. All right. So moving on, number 2, approval for June 9th, 2020 meeting minutes. So we just need a motion for that.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Pat. All in favor?
Pat?
I have an addition.
Pardon me, Mary?
I have an addition. We had a little conversation last meeting that wasn't reflected in the meeting minutes
Which was that?
about the North Hudson Commissioner not getting a vote.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go back to the agreement that we already have. And until that agreement has been amended, we are gonna stick with the current agreement we have in place.
So the agreement supersedes the city council's
The
amendment?
agreement, no, we're gonna abide by the 1982 agreement that is currently in place still. until
And my
that-
predecessor was able to vote during the entire time, even back to 2017, when you brought up the agreement in the first place.
Again, we're gonna stick with the agreement and what there currently is in place.
I think you're going against the city ordinance.
I'm not going against the city ordinance. I'm going by the agreement that we have in place right now that's been set in place since the 1980s.
Very well.
Okay.
You set a 20-year
So moving
precedent.
on. Pardon me?
It's a 20-year precedent.
A 20-year precedent of what, Mary?
In 1997, the city council, when the utility went from a Class C to a Class AB and changed the composition of the utility commission from the 3 members to 5 members, it included a North Hudson commissioner. And that was part of the stipulation in the Hudson ordinance that said you could vote, but
So are we abiding by the contract we have in place or something else?
for the last 20 years, you've been abiding by the
Okay.
city ordinance.
All right. Well, we are abiding by the contract that's currently in place. And that's what we're going to do right now until something else changes.
Very well.
Okay. So moving on.
Hey, Andy, can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
Are you getting any advice on that?
Pardon me?
Are you getting any advice from a city attorney or anything? I mean, if we've been doing something for 20 years, there's a pretty good precedent there.
Yeah. Would you like to chime in on that?
I'm just going off of what's in the agreement. I mean, I'm not an attorney. Lori is on here, so I don't know if she has, we will be talking about some of this later in item number 4. But I guess it's completely up to the commission. If they want to
The commission doesn't have the commission does not have the right to change a city ordinance.
I have a suggestion. I'd like to suggest that we record Mary's votes so that if something does come up, and then ask the city attorney to check on things, and that way we do have a record so that we can refer to if there's anything that is unclear.
So record her votes, and then if we move forward on something, will we go back and reverse?
Well, unless something is a close vote, it shouldn't matter. If something is a close vote, then we may have to table it until we know for sure what the city ordinance says.
Well, I think we need guidance from, the city attorney, because yes, there's a contract in place, but perhaps there's an ordinance in place as well.
Lori, would you like to share anything in regards to that?
No. I think I would defer to your city attorney on that.
But Lori, we would be safe if we record the vote.
That sounds like a good way to proceed.
Okay.
Well, let's get this thing moving. So we'll proceed with it for now, as Joyce suggested. Is everyone good with that? Yes? Yeah? Okay. Number 3, discussion and possible action.
We'll make that correction. We can go back and look at the video. We can make that correction in the minutes too, Mary.
Thank you.
That sounds good. Thanks, Kip.
Okay, so are we approving the June 9th meeting minutes, or are we?
Yes, with the correction.
With the correction, okay.
Yes.
Do we need to get another vote on that, or are we good?
No.
Okay. Number 3, discussion and possible action on the 2019 Public Service Commission report.
Okay, on with us is Jonathan Sherwood from Clifton Larson Allen. So, excuse me. In your packets, you should have got the complete Hudson Water financial summary, which he will be going through, along with the complete PSC report. Apologize that it's 100+ pages long. So, but that's what it is. So, I guess at this point I'll just turn it over to Jonathan. He will be sharing his screen here, as you can see, just to walk through. So, Jonathan, all yours.
Thank you very much, Kip, and thank you for the rest of the commissioners for having me stand in here in April's absence. She apologizes. She just had a scheduling conflict with a couple other Zoom meetings, as is our typical evening here as being municipal auditors. So I know that we are pressed for time, so I'm very glad that we have this nice financial summary that I have pulled up in front of everybody here. I'm going to keep my comments very high level. If there are specific questions, I have some comments here that April would like me to pass along to you as well. But if there's specific questions, I know that Kip and Jace have a lot of knowledge and insight into pulling all these numbers together for us, or helping pull these numbers together. So as we see here up on top here on the first page, we just have an overall financial summary of what is the actual activity for your revenues for a 5-year period of time. So this is a good trend analysis that we see. The only thing we really want to point out to you and just remind everybody on the commission of the recent activities here. In 2018, in this column, this is the first year where the new PSE rates went into effect in 2018. That definitely accounts for your uptick in revenue in 2018. It's a combination of the new rates as well as a combination of the sales of water usage increased in 2018. In 2019, obviously those rates are still in effect, but your revenues do dip, and that's directly attributable to a lower usage or lower consumption numbers. The comment here for 2020 numbers is we do have a step 2 in ongoing PSC rate case that is in process. It's been known about, this was a planned secondary increase here, and the status of that is PSC has been dragging their feet and taking their good time and reviewing all rate cases. They send back the typical questions that we then respond back to. So PSC has sent us those questions. We've responded back very recently, and now they're taking round 1 at looking at our review. So expect round 2, possibly round 3 of PSC follow-up questions before we can wrap that whole secondary rate increase up. There aren't any other major things I want to point out for you on page 1 here. The thing that will jump out, you will see a new color here on this metered sales of water in 2018 with the addition of the irrigation classification that was added to the rate cases starting with that 2018 rate change. Moving on to page 2, this is just another graphical outlay of the numbers that we were discussing earlier. Some people are graph people, some people are tables of number people. I fall into the later category, so for your pictorial representation here, you can definitely see the downward trend of your diamonds here of your operating income. And then when the 2018 rates came into effect, it then obviously improved our financial position, and with a slight dip here again, directly attributable to your reduced consumption numbers here in 2019. Operating expenses, as far as a blend of what type of operating expenses we have versus personnel, contracted services, and supplies and expense, that's very consistent over the time period, which I would expect to see from an audit standpoint. Your operations really don't change very much, so the mix of what makes up your total expenditures also shouldn't change, and that's what this graph is showing us here. Moving on to page 3. This is just a little bit further breakdown of the different classifications of your operating revenues up on top, and now we're really digging into your operating expenses here. Certain things that will jump out and just not look right from a trend analysis here, I'll just highlight a few and just give you just a reminder of the activity that took place during those years. First is this reservoirs and towers columns, 2016 and 2017 specifically. Those where the Hanley Road water tower rehab project was done in 2016, and then the Lemon Street rehab in 2017. So that's why those numbers kind of jump off the page at you as compared to a quote unquote typical year where you wouldn't have those activities done. The only other item that I want to comment on for you is the administrative and general line here. These numbers are also kind of not following a trend, and the reason for that is in the change between 17 and 18, that increase is due to the move to the new utility building, was the purchase, the outfitting of that new facility. So some of those expenses are recorded in the 2018 column here. The big change from 2018 and 2019, it increased again, so it looks like we're kind of on a runaway train here. In 2019, however, those expenses that are recorded there are essentially accounting type transactions for governmental standards. I won't bore you too much, but it's GASB 68 and GASB 75, which is the city's participation in the Wisconsin retirement system, as well as the post-employment benefits offered by the city. So in this case, since the water utility is the accounting lingo is a full accrual accounting system, we have to basically show what water's portion of its participation in these systems are. And by lieu of just being an accounting transaction, this is the water's share of those additional costs. So what I want to impress upon the commissioners is these aren't any specific dollars out the door, so to speak, where the water utility is writing a bunch of checks to a bunch of vendors related to administrative in general, but they are true costs as far as the total participation of the city in both the WRS system and post-employment benefits offered by the city. So that's kind of where those major changes are coming from. I will point out the other line here for you, excuse me, the net income from operations line. So this is just basically the results of your operations. In 2018 and 2019, you're going to notice you have a significant uptick in those balances. Again, that's directly attributable to the new rate increase that started in 2018. So you can see positive results there on that line. The other number here, slightly below that I need to comment on for you here in the 2019 column, is the results from non-operating revenues that come into the water utility. It looks like you have a gangbuster year here in 2019. The water utility took in $1.7 million in revenue from quote-unquote non-operating activities. Specifically in 2019, we have the sale of the old meter building is in that number, and then the biggest contributions that are showing up or reflecting in this line are contributions from developers for the 3 developments that were in place. For Carmichael Ridge, the final phase of that was in this number. South Pine, I believe, is in there, and then as well as St. Croix Meadows. Those are the largest factors going into this $1.79 million revenue to the water utility. Other than that, that's pretty much all I have for you on page 3. Page 4, this is just showing you where your cash flow is coming from, showing that your cash flow is getting stronger, which you would expect when you have more cash coming in the door and your operating expenses are basically staying flat. Yes, you do have some investing activity for payments of capital assets for the purchases of fixed assets. Those projects are just ongoing and wrapping up, but the biggest change in that is basically your collections from the water utility customers are really driving up your cash balances on hand as of the end of the year. Other than that, I don't have any other major comments there. You on page 4. So lastly is another good trend here, showing you the PSC calculated rate of return. So obviously PSC is regulating how much of a rate of return the water utility is going to be allowed to have. Going back to 16 and 17, when you had that negative rate of return, that was definitely the spark as to why a 2018 water rate increase was justified, is to then basically recoup this full 3% and then move into what an allowable rate of return is for the water utility. In 2018, you experienced a 5.5% increase being that first year. That's very favorable for your water utility. In 2019, we did dip a little bit down to basically a 1% rate of return. It's still positive, which is still encouraging. With more projects coming down the road, that would be another reason of why a step 2 rate increase would be justified when looking at it from a PSC regulatory standpoint. Outside of that, I went through things kind of fast and quickly overall. If there's any specific questions, I would welcome them. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah,
Does anybody have any questions for Jonathan? Or on the PSC report in general? Hopefully y'all had time to go through and read it.
Every word.
No questions? Great.
We need a motion.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have a motion?
Oh, wait.
So-
I have a question. Actually, 2. With the meters, since the irrigation class was put in, how come the report doesn't reflect irrigation class meters?
What page are you on, Mary?
W23-1, I think. Schedule 23, W23-1.
I apologize. I'm not able to pull up that file currently. I'm having some technical difficulties over here, so I'll defer to Kip and Jace if they're available to comment.
All right, hold on. Well, it's this. Yeah, page 1 of schedule W-23.
That would be page 77 of our packet.
Yeah, well, sorry, I don't have the iPad. So Jace has to send that separately to me, and it doesn't come the same way you guys get it.
Oh, okay.
I can't answer that specific. I think it's just we're classifying them. All of your irrigation are either going to be in your residential, your commercial, your industrial, or your public authority. I don't know why that isn't broke out. I guess I don't have an answer for that.
I know when the PSC requires us to designate the meters, they're typically wanting to know if it's a residential or a commercial meter specifically. Right. If it's designated as irrigation, it's basically just meaning that this secondary meter is for irrigation purposes only. I can't speak to why PSC doesn't have us say, oh, these are just irrigation meters. They may be making the designation that it's irrigation within a commercial building, so it would still be underneath the commercial category versus, irrigation in a residence. There is no, to my knowledge, there is no requirement that the city has to designate those meters as specifically irrigation.
I just thought that even like HOAs that have the green space and everything, that those meters would be designated as irrigation, even if the residential, the duct meters aren't.
Right.
Those could fall into the multifamily too.
And you had another question?
Yeah, the comment on why the was it the 3 and 4 inch meters weren't tested? So is utility staff doing, or what are they doing with the smaller meters that's taking up their time? Because I thought we contracted out for the meter replacement.
We do contract out for the meter replacement. The larger meters are on I believe, a 2 or 4 year schedule. So that's why you're probably seeing where the 3s and 4s, it just depends on where they fall in that schedule on when they get serviced and tested.
Oh, well, the comment on the 3rd page
I don't
of
know where you're
the
at.
meter
There
page.
again.
So if you go down 2 more pages from where we were, the comment is that the utility didn't meet the requirements of testing the 3 and 4 inch meters. We tested or replaced every 2 years. And the comment is that staff time was heavily involved in the meter replacement.
Oh, we are still heavily involved in the meter replacement. When we're doing 1,400 of these a year, my 2 staff members that are assigned to this are getting the meters ready for the guys, are bringing them back, are checking them in, checking them out, things like that. But I'm trying to see how many 3 and 4 inch meters we actually have. We've got
under 30.
Under 30.
29.
And some of those are going to be well meters. Some of them are going to be, large customers that are just on a rotation on when they get picked up and checked, when they're checked for cross connections, things like that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Good.
Well, again, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Appreciate it.
Good night.
Night. All right. Do we need a motion on that? We do,
Yes.
right? Perfect. Start with a motion.
Move to approve.
A second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey,
So carried.
who seconded the, I didn't see or hear.
That was Susie.
Susie.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Number 4, discussion and possible action on memo regarding continued water services to North Hudson. Yep.
Okay, so I'll start with this. June 30th, the ad hoc committees met. The representatives from the city, the representatives from the village met on June 30th to just discuss next steps, where this was, because it had been a long time since we had talked. So at that meeting, we were informed by the village of North Hudson that they did not wish to consolidate, but preferred to rewrite the existing agreements. So I guess out of that meeting, we just informed the village of North Hudson that we would definitely be, talking to council. That's why Lori's here, on what next steps are, what we have to do to resolve this, and kind of just what's the best thing for Hudson moving forward in here. So hopefully everybody had time to read the memorandum from Lori, which was dated July 10th. So I guess from there, I'll just kind of let Lori recap, or if she wants to just kind of go through her memo and what she's suggesting that our next steps are for the city of Hudson. So.
Okay, thank you. So the city of Hudson and the village of North Hudson have a water agreement. The current one that's in place is dated 1983. And the situation, the arrangement they have in that agreement is really unique for water utilities in Wisconsin. And it's really not a situation that the PSC currently supports. And that is where the city of Hudson owns the water supply facilities, and then the village of North Hudson owns the distribution system, and then the city of Hudson is actually the water supplier to the residents of North Hudson. So the city of Hudson is supplying water to North Hudson residents over mains it does not own. And that is not a situation that the PSC supports anymore. I cited in the memo a case where that issue was at issue before the PSC, and the reason is that it's very difficult for a water utility to supply water over mains it doesn't own because it can't control the quality, it can't control water loss, it's just a variety of things. So really there were two different ways to resolve this kind of problematic arrangement, and one was either to have the city of Hudson take ownership and control of the distribution system in North Hudson, which was what was under discussion, but the other alternative is to have the city of North Hudson switch over and provide wholesale service to the village in North Hudson. And what that means is that the actual water customer would be the village of North Hudson, not the individual residents in North Hudson. And in that case, then the village of North Hudson would take over being the water supplier to its own residents, and it would over the mains that it owns. So that situation is not uncommon. You know, that happens in Milwaukee, La Crosse, lots of different places. So then the question was, okay, how do we move from where we are now to this situation where we would provide wholesale service to village residents or to the village instead of providing retail service? And so that was one of the things I looked at, and my memo goes through and discusses that. So one of the things the city should continue discussions with North Hudson about rewriting the agreement to try to make it a wholesale agreement. One of the things that will be required in order for that to happen is that the village will need to become a publicly regulated water utility. Frankly, in my view, they should have been a water utility already, but they would need to become a publicly regulated utility in order to supply service to its residents. There will need to be a number of PSC approvals in order to accomplish all of this. The city of North Hudson would abandon retail service. The village of North Hudson would take over retail service. We would need to address the meters because North Hudson would be the one to be responsible for metering the water sold to its customers. So that would need to be addressed. And there's just a number of different steps. So I'm going to just kind of switch or move ahead to the end of the memo, because at the end I have a number of bullet points that address what the city would need to do, what the utility would need to do as they move to a wholesale arrangement. So I'm going to just go through those bullet points. One is terminating the 1993 water agreement as of the end of 2020. I think that should be done because it's that water agreement that sets up this arrangement that is no longer consistent with PSC policy. The agreement has provisions in there on how the termination needs to take place. Any party to the agreement can terminate by providing written notice of the termination to the other party at least 90 days in advance. So what that would mean is that the Hudson Common Council would need to be the ones to officially terminate the agreement, and written notice of the termination would need to be provided to the village prior to October 2nd, 2020, in order for the termination to be effective at the end of the year. Now, that doesn't mean, even though the agreement's effective, that doesn't mean all of a sudden service to North Hudson ends. It would obviously still continue, but it does provide an important step to moving towards this wholesale arrangement, which is what we really need to move to. The second bullet point is that I would suggest that we have a meeting with PSC and DNR staff to discuss the current service arrangements, our concerns with that, and the need to move to the wholesale service arrangement. I think it would be good for both PSC and DNR staff to be brought up to speed on this. They both have raised concerns in the past about the arrangement, and so I think it would be good to get everybody kind of on the same page with that. Village residents or village representatives should also be encouraged to attend the meeting, because I think, again, it's important to try to work together if we can to move towards this wholesale arrangement. We should work on negotiating that agreement with the village, and then we will need to request PSC approval to provide wholesale instead of retail service to the village, and then we would hope that the village would at the same time ask for authority to become a public utility and to take over retail water service. I guess in the worst case scenario, if the village was unwilling to do that, then Hudson may need to ask the PSC for a declaratory ruling on that point. Hopefully that wouldn't be required, and that we can all work together on it. And I also would suggest that Hudson consider hiring a rate consultant, because one of the things that will happen is that when you move to a wholesale arrangement, a wholesale water rate will have to be established. And the method of doing that's a little bit different than how retail rates are set. So we would need to do that, and it would be helpful to have a rate consultant assist with that. So that kind of goes through the memorandum that I put together, and I'd be happy to take any questions people have.
So what we'd be looking for today, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lori, would be a recommendation if the commission wishes to move towards the wholesale because of the consolidation is out. The village told us point blank that they're not interested in that. So if we move, so what we'd be looking for today would be a motion to present to the Common Council to terminate that. Is it 93 or 83? I can't remember. I thought it was 80.
I'm sorry. It is 83. Sorry.
So to terminate the 1983 agreement with written notice prior to October 2nd of 2020. Correct?
Yes.
Does anybody else have questions for Lori or anybody else?
I have a question just in general, I guess, Lori. From the first page of your memo, just right around the point where you cite a case, the word ought, that the utility providing the retail water services ought to be owner. It doesn't say must be owner. I mean, I just wonder if this is truly a thing. It's ought, I mean, I looked it up. It is not a requirement. It's ought to be. I mean, I ought to avoid playing golf in the lightning also. But yeah, and you're the attorney, not me, but.
I guess that, are you absolutely 100% mandated to make the switch? I don't know that I could absolutely say that you're mandated to make the switch. I would say that that the PSC and the DNR and the water utility staff have all raised concerns about being responsible to provide water to customers over facilities you don't own.
I understand. I understand
so
the
I think there's
concerns,
two
but
different.
what I don't like is being led to believe that it's a must.
I don't feel I led you to believe that. I said it was inconsistent with current PSC policy, and I believe that's true.
Well, maybe not at meetings you've been in attendance, but we have been told that it's not if, it's when, because we must convert.
There are significant concerns, like I said, about.
And I understand
water.
concerns. Right. Concerns and demands are totally different.
So what's the solution then, Kurt?
Andy, I don't know what the solution is, but I'm asking.
So
we're approaching this as if
we're trying to go to a solution. No. We have a deadline. There is a real deadline.
Okay. No, there isn't a deadline. There isn't.
Or else PFC and the DNR are going to make the decision for us.
Lori, is there a deadline? It's not a must do, Andy. I understand the concerns, but the word ought pretty well screams that it's a recommendation. There is concerns. I get it.
So again,
but stop with the deadlines. The deadlines are in your head.
Sure. So the contract ends, and then when the contract ends, if we don't come to any sort of agreement on this, though, then they jump in and make the decision for us. So, so I agree with you. Sure, you can take the word ought and say, yes, that is not law and it's not set in stone. My question is, though, in the scheme of trying to move forward and push along, what's the solution then? So I agree with you, right? Ought. Okay, it's a loose word. You're riding on a line here. So I'm asking you bring up the point. What's the solution?
May I?
What's the solution?
So the DNR.
We can pick this apart all we want and say what's long, what's not. And Kurt, I agree with you. So don't get that mixed up. I agree. The word ought. I see your point and I agree. But if we're going to provide any kind of critical feedback, let's be constructive. Let's provide some solutions to go with it. And I think right now we've been talking about this because you've been on the commission a long time, man. We've talked about this. This has gone on for years now, and we got two solutions. And the people that do this for a living and make careers of it like Lori said, they have concerns, and that doesn't mean it's law, but they have serious concerns about the way that this is going. Let's address this in a constructive manner and let's get a solution.
Andy, that's just fine. Thanks for the long dissertation. I'm not against Lori's bullet points. I wanted to clarify if this is mandated or, let's say, best practice, and that's fine. I'm good with moving forward with whatever we agree, and I think that the bullet points are fine. I wanted it to be clarified.
One other thing I want to add is that on other provisions in the DNR administrative code, for example, a water utility cannot provide or is not supposed to, but the rule says, regulation says, you're not supposed to provide water, for example, to a mobile home park in your community over lines you don't own, that you need to master meter that mobile home park. It's the same with a condominium association or an industrial park. So that rule does not specifically talk about when you're providing service to another wholesale community or to another community, but certainly the practice of not providing service over lines you don't own is recognized in the PSC code.
I'm sorry, Lori, would you please clarify that for me, please? Which PSC code says you can't provide water over lines you don't own?
Well, it specifically talks about it with regard to like mobile home parks. So it's in the Wisconsin Administrative Code, PSC 185.53 sub 2. That one is individual metering. A utility may only provide retail service directly to individual dwellings within a mobile home park, condominium association, trust, etc., if the distribution facilities within the mobile home park, condominium association, trust, etc., are owned by the utility on easements. So you have to be owned by the utility in order to provide individual service over those facilities.
Okay. Just a point of clarification too, even in the 2018 DNR sanitary report, it was a recommendation, pardon me? It was a recommendation that we update the agreements, and I am wholeheartedly in favor of that. I think that we should at least explore that. It hasn't been explored because I heard the ad hoc committee got bogged down in which direction to go, so they chose to work on one, and it was the consolidation side. Well, that's gone nowhere, so now we're on to another option.
Lori, is there any other community in the state that you're aware of that does provide service as we do over mains we do not own?
I'm not aware of any, and I work with what? I work with
Milwaukee. West Milwaukee does.
No, they don't own the mains. So in Milwaukee owns the mains in many of the wholesale communities.
West Milwaukee is not a wholesale community. West Milwaukee is.
I'm sorry, a retail community. So if you provide,
they're a reduced rate retail community because they don't own the mains. Because Milwaukee Waterworks doesn't own the mains in West Milwaukee.
I would have to double check. I would have to double check on that. I work with a lot of the Milwaukee customers, municipal customers, and there's a pretty stark distinction between the communities that own their own distribution systems and are receiving wholesale service from Milwaukee, and the communities that do not own the distribution systems and receive retail service from Milwaukee. Now, perhaps West Milwaukee is different. I would have to check on that. But in all the other situations I'm aware of, and I am aware that if the retail service provider provides or owns the distribution system. I'll check on West Milwaukee.
Thank you.
But even if that is the case in West Milwaukee, that would be something that there has been an effort to move away from. Because, for example, water loss is a very, very important factor, and it's becoming more important with the Public Service Commission measuring water loss from distribution systems. Well, if you're the water supplier, because it impacts the amount of water capacity you need, if you need to build a new well, if you need to build new facilities, if you can't manage the distribution system in order to minimize the water loss, how can you manage the water supply system? So, and then now things like lead service line issues are coming up, that the distribution system's affecting what you do on the supply system. So these were less of a concern back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. But today, the distribution system is tied so much more to the supply system that to have this disconnect is really problematic from a utility management standpoint.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Is there anyone feeling, based on all of the information that we've learned so far over the discussions of this last year, 2 years, that it's not wise to do this? Is it prudent not to do this?
I don't see a reason not to do this.
Me neither.
What about you, Susie?
That was me asking the question.
Yeah, no, I know, but what's your opinion?
I think that when you look at the risk that is involved with water systems, all the information we have been seeing, hearing, reading, being told about for the last, 5 years nationwide, I think there has to be a tighter system here.
Wow. I really don't think either Hudson or the utility or North Hudson wants to poison its residents.
Well, I'm not saying it's intentional. I don't think anyone nationwide, Mary, has intentionally done that. My God, that's a terrible thing to suggest anyone would ever intentionally do something like that.
It just seems like we're not complying with regulations because we don't own the water supply, but.
No, let's not make
assumptions. No. The first thing that came up was, we weren't doing what we were supposed to be doing in North Hudson as far as the distribution system goes and sewer. And yes, we do have a disagreement over Riverside Drive lift station, but that's different. We exercise valves, we flush hydrants. We do everything we can to make sure the distribution system is in good repair. And we spend the money to do it.
Okay, so I don't think anyone today is disagreeing with that. Years ago, yes. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lori. Even though you do flush mains, you exercise hydrants, you do valves, the bottom line comes down that the city of Hudson is responsible for that at this point, where we have zero control over it, but we're responsible for it.
The city of Hudson is responsible for the water that gets delivered to the customers. And so if there's anything that happens along the way, the city of Hudson is responsible for that because you're the one providing the water to the customer.
Correct. And that's the issue. That's the big issue.
That's the newest issue I've heard because.
Well, that's been an issue since we started discussing this 4 years or 5 years ago. Is that
spreadsheet?
That we're making the water, we're responsible for the end result of that water when it comes to sampling and things of that nature, but we don't control what's in the middle of it. That's the biggest. That's the biggest issue, or one of the biggest issues right there.
Okay. And we've gotten poor information from the DNR about their requirements. Because
the DNR has said that they in our 2020 sanitary survey, they will be coming in and making changes to sampling requirements and different things like that. And again, it doesn't change the fact that the city of Hudson is responsible for anything that happens. Bad sampling, water loss, like Lori discussed, things of that nature that we cannot control. We're just kind of leaving it to the village to control that. And if you're doing it right or wrong is beside the point. The point is that the city of Hudson does not feel comfortable being responsible for something that they do not control.
Any other comments or questions on this?
Well, my comment is that those of us who are representing the city of Hudson on this commission have a responsibility to protect the city of Hudson for liability issues.
Well, what about selling the wells and standpipes and treatment plant in North Hudson? Or abandoning those and transferring them to North Hudson?
I don't think at this point that's even been discussed. I don't know if Hudson would even entertain the idea of selling anything. I don't know. That would have to be a discussion.
Anything else?
It's not a large part of your net plant, so.
Well, it would have been nice if we could have brought this to the table 2 years ago too, when we originally wanted to have the conversation, but here we are. All right, does anybody else have any other questions for Lori on this topic? All right, so are we looking for a motion on this then, Jace, correct?
That you'll have to, that defer to Kip.
Well, you in order to, it depends, if the direction you guys want to go is to follow what Lori laid out in her memo, the first thing that we need to do is make a recommendation from this body back to city council to, and city council can do what they want. They don't have to follow what you guys recommend, that's for sure. But in order to follow the bullet points, the first thing that this commission would have to do would be to recommend back to the city council to terminate the 1983 agreement with written notice of termination provided to the village prior to October 2nd, 2020, in order for it to be effective at the end of this year, which would be our 30-day or 90-day notice. I think it was a 90-day notice. So, or you don't have to do anything on it. I guess that's up to you guys. But if you are going to follow the memo, that would be the recommendation from this commission to the city council. And then obviously then we just continue to follow, once the city council hears this, once they make a decision on it, then we continue to follow bullet points on what we have to do.
Well, I think it would be responsible to take Lori's advice and let's get it over to city council and see what city council thinks of it. So,
do you want to put that in a motion then, Andy? Just so we have an official motion. I just want to say let's just kind of do this.
Yes,
we could.
So we are going to motion to take the recommendation from Lori to bring the city council to potentially make North Hudson a wholesale customer. Can we get a motion?
You're going to want to make that motion. If you're going to do that, you're going to want to make the motion to move the 1983 agreement to the city council for termination prior to October 2nd, 2020.
I'll make the motion.
A second?
Second.
Susie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Why don't you do a roll call on this, please, Jace?
Yes. Just my agenda, excuse me. Hassan,
Yes.
Corum,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Wecken.
No.
6 ayes.
Motion carries.
Oh, I'm sorry, 5 ayes, 1 nay.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to number 5, discussion of possible action.
Thank you, Lori. I think Lori's probably going to jump off now, so.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Lori.
Do we need a motion on any of these other bullet points?
Well, first, it's got to go to city council. You know, if city council decides not to move forward with this, there's no point in doing any
Okay.
other bullet points. So,
Yep. All right.
you know, I'm thinking that if city council does move forward with this, us as staff are just going to start going through with bullet points, you know, on their direction. So,
Thank you. Good night.
thanks, Lori.
Thanks, Lori.
Hey, Susie, do you have, I'm assuming you have the meeting schedule in front of you?
The schedule.
The agenda.
You have the agenda in front of you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I have to jump off the call, so you're gonna be taking the reins on this the rest of the way.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. I'm just
Down
going back.
on number 5.
Number 5. Okay.
Okay?
You
All
bet.
right, thanks, Andy.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Okay. Bear with me. I'm scrolling backwards here. Okay.
Do you just would it be easier, Susie, if you just want me to read them? If everybody's all right with that, doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's okay.
I've got paper copies here in front of me, so I'm not
Sure.
scrolling around.
Yep, you bet.
Does anybody else have an issue or? Okay, number 5, discussion and possible action on issuance of credit on public fire protection for irrigation accounts. So if you see, I did put together an issue sheet in here. I'll just read the issue sheet so everybody understands that. During the financial audits pertaining to the 2020 water rate case with the Public Service Commission, it was self-discovered that Hudson Utilities had been inadvertently charging a public fire protection charge on irrigation accounts. The practice of this charge changed with the October 4th, 2017 rate file tariff. The new rate file under Schedule F1 Public Fire Protection states that irrigation class meters are not subject to the charges in this schedule. Public Service Commission was contacted immediately upon finding this error. Through discussion with staff and the Public Service Commission, it was determined that issuing a credit to the affected accounts was the best path to take. The charge has since been removed from the second quarter of billings of 2020. Credits will be issued for 10 quarters of water billing beginning fourth quarter 2017 through first quarter 2020, including accrued interest. Credits will be reflected on the customer's third quarter 2020 bill, but applied to the accounts by the end of July 2020. A total of approximately 275 accounts were affected with an amount of approximately $135,420 credited. And then you also have in there a big long spreadsheets that kind of gives the, I don't know what all came through, but gives the totals and things like that. And then you also have in there one thing that we do have to do. Anyone that owned property prior and sold that property, we do have to make an attempt to reach out to them through mail and let them know that there is a credit on the property that they owned prior. So that's where you're seeing the difference in the 2 letters that are in the back. There was one that would just go to everybody that currently owns their home. Just explaining that there was a miscalculation on their public fire protection on their irrigation. Now this is irrigation only, and then the second one is that we're trying to contact them for a refund because we can't issue a credit to that account, the full credit if they only own the property for half the time or whatever. So. So I guess that's kind of where we're at. Like I said, we did self-find this as we were going through. And we did contact PSC immediately, and through discussions with them, It was just determined that issuing a credit on their irrigation portion of that bill was the best thing in order for us to rectify this. So, is there questions on it, or?
So do you need a motion to approve the credits?
Yeah, I think we do. Yeah, let's get a motion just to approve the credits, just so it's official that that me and the finance director and the billing clerk can actually issue credits by the end of this month. And the reason that we're doing it by the end of this month, but you won't see it reflected until your third quarter, is we had to figure out interest on these 10 quarters. So the PSC actually gives us a sheet that has interest payments or interest by year. So we had to go back, and finance had to go back and figure out, what was owed for the fourth quarter 2017, what was owed for 2018, what was owed for the first quarter 2019, because the interest rates are different. So yeah, I think it's best if we wanted you aware of this, for one. So if anybody starts questioning why they're getting credits and things like that, it was just an oversight. It's been in the past, but like I said, in our 2017 tariff, it's small print on the bottom of a page that was just missed in the billing side of it. So we're just rectifying that.
I'll move to approve.
Second. Do we need a vote from everyone then? All in favor?
Just
All
in favor.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is item number 6, discussion and possible action on wastewater treatment plant improvement project, Magny Construction Incorporated, pay request number 1. So here we go, the pay request number 1. Pay request is $263,976.50. We do have SEH has gone through their pay request. They made sure that what they are requesting has been completed. If you actually look at your big long spreadsheet that's in there, the majority of it was for bonding, insurance, and immobilization. That's pretty much what this request here is. There's a little bit in there for supervision and general conditions, but this did run through SEH. Like I said, they did double check everything, check their numbers just to make sure everything was good, and they did send it forward to us for approval. So we would need a motion on this, yes.
Move to approve.
Was that Joyce?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Nolan, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All right, next item, project updates, project status report.
So the commercial residential cross connection inspection program, they are out. I believe this is their second week that they've been out. We've gotten a lot of phone calls on this. The computer system that HydroCorp was using is actually sending out multiple requests. Some people with the mailing system also, or with the postal system, some people are getting a second notice before they're getting a first notice and things like that. So we're trying to take care of them. But other than that, people have been pretty good about letting us in. I think I've had maybe less than a handful of calls that they did not want us in there, just for health reasons, things of that with the COVID going on. So what we're doing with those is actually pushing them to the bottom of the stack. So we'll revisit those in the next couple months and see what happens with that. But otherwise, that project's going pretty well. State Highway 35, not a whole lot's change on that. Pretty much everything's in the state's hands. So we'll just wait and see what happens with that. wastewater treatment plant. I don't know if any of you have been by it, but they have started tearing the garage down, all that kind of stuff. They removed all the doors, heating system, everything that was inside the garage. So they are down there working on that. The building, I just did get some stuff from EA Architects to present to you guys, but I received it about 4 o'clock this afternoon, so there wasn't time to get that on the agenda for tonight. So we'll take that up. The Wisconsin Street Tower, they were supposed to be there mid-July. They are not there. They will be there the first week in August to start the Wisconsin Street Tower. They'll be there, just starting to remove things, stuff of that nature. So I'll keep you updated on that. So that's about it for project status.
All right. And can we get an approval on that?
No, there's no.
No,
Oh, we
that's
don't
just
need to.
information.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just information.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Other business for information purposes only, or for upcoming agenda?
The only thing I had, like I said, is we'll be updating the utility storage recommendation or whatever. You'll see it next month. So we'll be talking about that again next month. But that's about it.
Anybody else? Okay. Item 9, sewer utility and water utility cash reports.
So you've got those in front of you. If there's any questions on those, billing just did go out for second quarter, or might even be going out this week. So that will be going out this week. So we will see an uptick in that.
All right. Any questions on that? All right. Discussion and possible action on claims.
Move to approve?
Was that Joyce?
Yes.
Okay. Need a second?
I'll second that.
Kurt? Okay.
All in favor?
I had a question on 2 claims. One had to do with the title review at the wastewater treatment plant, and the other one was sewer issues, both going to Radley, Besker, and Newhouse. What kind of title review needed to be done on the wastewater?
The title review that had to be done was we needed a legal opinion that we own the property at the wastewater treatment plant. So in order to get that, we have to have our attorney, Kathy McKintrick, had to give the city of Hudson a legal review on that. I don't know what page you're on here, so.
Oh, it's way down there, and it's all right. And the other one, well, it wasn't much. Sewer issues, I wasn't sure what that was, but.
You got a page on that?
No, it wasn't all that much. It was just, I think it was $12 or $12.50 or something like that. It's just that I didn't know what kind of sewer issues it was.
Yeah, without
I don't have a
looking at
page.
it.
It was in the July 10th payables, if that helps. It's all right.
Mary, if you want, come up if you can find it. Just email Jace. He can pull the report or pull the invoice on it.
It's all right on that one. It was the title review that I think that was the one that was the $280 or something.
Yes, I see that one, but I don't see the other one that you're.
Yeah, the other one was.
It was $18.50.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to pull for an 18.
I know it's minor.
An $18.50 bill. I can't remember.
I just didn't know if it was related to the title review or not.
No, the title review is, like I said, the title review is the legal opinion that we had to have done in order to show the Clean Water Fund that we actually own the property that we are doing that project on. So it was all part of the Clean Water Fund review process, or that we had to turn into them. So.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
That's it.
And that's the thing, and I guess I'll just say that if anybody has, when you guys are going through this, if you have questions, a lot of times we don't have our stacks of papers in front of us, and I mean, we deal with a lot of bills and things like that. So if you do see something, it's best just to send Jace or I an email or CC us both and just say, hey, what is this? I mean, we can easily at that point then, instead of trying to scramble through pages and things
Okay.
like that, we can pull bills and see what it actually was. You got to remember too, a lot of times when Jace is coding this stuff, he only has a certain space that he gets to put a description in.
Yeah, limited space.
We can't explain a lot what this actually is. It might just say legal or something along that line, but
Gotcha.
so yeah, don't ever be afraid just to, send us an email and just say, hey, what is this? So.
What kind of information has to be included in the email? Date of payable, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, just anything. A lot of times, if you look at this, you'll see account numbers. Funded
Yep.
account. Just basically, or just even if you want to just copy and paste it,
Gotcha.
highlight it, send it to us.
Or just the name of the vendor, who's being paid.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's it.
Any other
Did we-
discussion?
Did we have so we had a Hall and T-Waco. Was there a vote
Yes.
on that? I'm sorry. There was a
All in
vote?
favor.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did you say there was not a vote?
There was.
There was, okay. All right,
And then I got my question.
okay, all right, that's why I wasn't sure where we're at. All right, last item is adjournment. All in favor?
Move to adjourn.
All right. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.